recorded.
And who do I need to address?
Me, I'll be taking the interview since Rohan ka camera is not working. Fine, let's begin. So, hi guys, I'm Ayush, co-founder of the Case Club along with Rohan. So Rohan, say hi.
Hi everyone.
Yeah, so first of all, welcome to Consult 101, Demystifying Management Consulting as a Career Option. And today, we have with us the superstar alum of IITM, Vamsi Krishna. Hi Vamsi.
Hey Ayush, hey Rohan. That was quite an intro.
So, no, that's not the intro. Just a little bit about him. He was the Co-Curricular Affairs Secretary or the COCAS from 2018 to 2019 in his final year. Has been the Shaastra Evolve Core, got a branch change in his first year, and more importantly, cracked Mckinsey in his placements. Oh my God, that's like a lot. So he's going to be helping us today in demystifying, or let's say decoding consulting as a career option with his exact and to the point answers. We have divided the interview into two parts of 12 to 13 minutes each. So I highly recommend watching both the parts if you're considering consult as a career option. This will be highly beneficial. So let's begin with part one, the topic of which is what exactly is management consulting. So over to you, Vamsi. What exactly is management consulting?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, see, there are so many ways of putting what exactly management consulting is, but the easiest way to understand this would be to say that there are so many businesses that run today, and they do different things. Some company manufactures tires, some company manufactures steel. Then there are banks. So everything that you see around you, it's basically a business that's running. And
Right.
many times, for whatever reasons, right, a lot of these business leaders need inputs and advice on what needs to be done to solve any particular issue or to build out a strategy or for whatever reasons. And that's when management consultants step in. We help business leaders, CEOs and CXOs of companies make certain decisions or run things in certain way that will improve their business, simply put. Now that's at a high level what management consulting is, and I'm sure that you can see a bunch of videos about that. But what I would like to bring your attention to is that when you join as a BA or whatever role, I mean, typically if I'm still join as a BA at McKinsey, um, you are a part of that particular process of helping that company uh, become better at its business. So that's how you play a role. And I'm sure that there are questions asking what is it and how it goes about. But simply put, that's how it is. There's a business that needs certain intervention, and you as management consultants have to help them. Uh,
So can we call you business doctors?
I mean, see, first of all, this is a very unstructured and unscripted interview, so don't think this is a planned question because I'm hearing this for the first time. And dude, I think doctor is a very strong word. But more like an advisor to a CEO, right? Think of it like a king's court. A king has multiple ministers who advise him or her, and let's say a McKinsey partner or anyone is one of the advisors who helps them make the decisions
Right.
for CEO.
Right. So that's well put. So you said when companies are facing problems, they want to develop strategy, they call consultants. So can you give an example in, let's say, very simple words explaining a typical project?
Yeah. Actually, one thing I'd like to correct here is it's not necessary that companies only hire management consultants when they are facing any problem.
Okay.
They could be doing very well and still hire a management consultant because they want to make a strategy for the future. So let's say I want a
Yes.
strategy. Let's say I want to lay out the next 5 year strategy. I want to become market leader. You can still hire a consultant. It doesn't mean that my business isn't doing well. So one of the misconceptions is that companies only hire consultants when they're not doing well. That's not true. They hire even if they're doing well as well. And now to give an example of how this thing is, and maybe I'll quickly put a structure to this. There are three types of projects or cases or studies that consultants do. Number one is a strategy piece. What is it? A strategy piece is a 8 to 10 week or a 14 week project where you are helping the CEO um, figure out a roadmap for a particular goal that they have. For example,
Okay.
right? Let's say you have a tire manufacturer or a cement manufacturer, and they say that okay, we want to be the market leader by 2027. Currently, we are third in the market. We want to be a market leader, right? So you as a team have to work for the 8-10 week period to identify, to chalk out a plan as to what needs to be done in the coming years across multiple dimensions, across hiring, capability building, launching certain products, go to market strategy, whatever levers you identify. But you have to give them a plan. Say that this is what you should do if you want to become a market leader by 2027. That's strategy. Number two is implementation, where the CEO or whoever says that, hey, we have a strategy in mind, but now we want it to be implemented, right? So somebody else has made the strategy already, and it could well be a consulting firm itself or some other consulting firm. But your job then is to help them execute it. So that is a different game altogether. There are like 8 months, 9 months, some cases years, long projects where you need to work on ground with those employees of the clients, really sit with them week after week, take updates, push them, identify where they're getting stuck, debottleneck issues, right? And the third is the due diligence, where you basically, it's a 3-4 weeks project where you basically have to perform a diligence on a company to identify how valuable it is. And that's more into the private equity side of things, but that's what you do. Yeah.
Oh, can you simplify the word due diligence, let's say in one line?
Uh, Due diligence would essentially mean that just checking something end to end. For example,
Okay.
I can give an example, maybe more relevant to Insti, right? For example, you want to apply for Shaastra Evolve, right? But you don't
Uh-huh.
know about anything about
Mm-hmm.
Shaastra Evolve. Is it good? Is it bad? Will I grow? Will I learn something? What do? You talk to a bunch of seniors who have been a part of Shaastra Evolve. You talk to a bunch of seniors or friends who are applying. You talk to the ex course. So what are you doing there? You're actually performing a due diligence on Shastra Evolve to figure out if it is what you want. So that's a
Hmm.
diligence.
Makes
Similarly,
sense.
lot of times companies want to acquire other companies. So then they will hire McKinsey and ask them, hey, we want to acquire them, or can you help us identify what is this company like? So you will perform a diligence end to end. What is their market? What is their revenue? Or what is the whole market like? And there are multiple components of diligence. I don't want to go deeper into it, but you evaluate a company on multiple parameters to identify how valuable it is. Is it even interesting enough to acquire or buy
Great,
or invest in?
great, great,
I mean,
great.
it's not always a buyout. Yeah.
Great. So there are multiple hypotheses around the working of a consultant. Some say they just have to make PPTs. They're like PowerPoint slaves. Some say they work under a boss. Some say there's group brainstorming. What exactly is there?
Yeah. So now this is a very difficult question to answer, and primarily because what I want you guys to understand is that it's a very generalist role. A generalist role is a role where your job profile, if you look at day-to-day tasks, is too diverse.
Hmm.
Okay. Having said that, let me try to put them into perspective, and I'll also try to bust some myths along the way, because a lot of people hear so many misconceptions and so many things about consulting. Like, see, broadly there are multiple aspects to the job. Okay. But if I have to think of it broadly, the
Okay.
first aspect is the ability to absorb, understand, and synthesize or summarize information at scale. As a consultant, you'll be working in various sectors, talking to multiple people, and you must have the ability to absorb that information, really make sense out of it, and synthesize things. Which means when you talk to somebody, when you read material, you should be able to grasp things fast, right? That is one. Two, you will start building. You'll have a lot of your work will involve a lot of communication, and this communication can be multiple things. Okay, one of them would be verbal communication, where you communicate to clients, you communicate to your colleagues in a very structured manner to put across your points. You also communicate through PowerPoints.
Hmm.
So I don't see PowerPoint as I mean, it's a skill,
Okay.
but it's more of a tool for you to communicate to the CEO of a company or to your clients, right? So rather than
Yeah.
focusing on how does the software work, your focus will be more on how do I communicate things? How do I write the titles? How do I put across the page or the slide so that my message is getting conveyed? Right? So you work on those aspects more than just learning the skill of PowerPoint. Key, I can resize a dabba now, or I know how to format well. I mean, those all skills will pick up on the way. But it's more about learning the art of communicating through text, which could be a PowerPoint, which could be an email, right? So that's how that is. The third component is obviously performing certain analysis on data. And again, you don't have to be a machine learning god or some. No, you don't need to know R programming and stuff like that. It's purely an Excel, right? I think a lot of us don't understand the value of Excel in Insti, but you realize it's a very powerful tool. So just performing some data analysis, the ability to make sense out of numbers, that is essentially important. So across these levers, if you see the core skills or the skills you'll develop would be PowerPoint or Excel is what you think. Those are the tools. You don't have to be good at them. You should be able to use them to get to the answer you want to. Now to answer the question of are you a PowerPoint slave? I don't think you are. It just becomes your tool. And depending on your project, right, it varies. For example, on a strategy project, yes, you do make a lot of PowerPoints and you do feel like a slave sometimes. But if you're an implementation project, you don't have to do anything with PowerPoint. It's all about client handling and communication. On a diligence, PowerPoints do exist, but it's a lot more about absorbing information at scale and making sense out of numbers and P&L statements. So depending on how your exposure is, what you're doing, and how the setup is, this will all vary. But that's how I'll put it. And I'll not be surprised if a lot of my friends who are in consulting disagree with me here, because everybody has had such a different experience that they'll feel different about it. Like my friends could have spent months and months doing PPTs, but I did not, because I had certain different kind of projects.
So just to draw an analogy, what vectors and matrices are to maths and physics, Excel and PowerPoint is to consult. It's a tool to convey.
It's just a tool. It's just a tool that you use to convey certain idea or certain business advice or whatever. Yeah. That's a very
Makes sense. So there's one more myth that we like to clarify. People say that the consult roles that you get from Insti, like an engineering undergrad, are shit. People just take it to leave it after 1.5 years. And if you want to get into actual management consulting, it's post your MBA. How true is that?
It's definitely a myth. By the way, guys, you must understand that when someone leaves a place, it's not because they find that place shit. It could also be because they found another opportunity which they think will be more fulfilling for them, right? So that's a very important thing to note here, because you must have noticed the pattern of people leaving. That's not because they find Mckinsey or whatever company shit. I think they all still love their consulting jobs. It's just that they found something more exciting or something more relatable to them. Now coming to the part of the difference between a pre-MBA and post-MBA roles, personal experience, and I can vouch for this. Anybody can vouch for this. It's little the same thing. Okay. What varies though is the load that you take, right?
Okay.
When someone has done their MBA, they come with a work experience, a lot more mature, and they're actually mature in their professional career as well. So maybe they might do 10 things, okay? And as a pre-MBA first year consultant, you might do 5 things or 4 things, but the things that you do will be same. So it's not like a difference between it's not a promotion thing. Like honestly, it's not like the work changes. The work changes at a manager level for sure, okay, which comes much later in your career. But the role you get right out of MBA and the role you get right out of IIT at a consulting firm, the difference will only come in terms of how much load is given to you, primarily because of your experiences and your exposure and your maturity. Otherwise, there's no difference, honestly. At least in the firm I have worked at. Yeah.
Great. That's actually a relief for many people, including me. So nice. I can peacefully aim for consulting roles. So coming to the next question, you mentioned, you have clearly specified how important effective communication is for a consultant. So is it true that only extrovert people can become successful in a consulting career?
Yeah. See, at least here's my point of view, right? Being an extrovert does not necessarily mean someone who communicates well, and being an introvert does not mean that you can't communicate well, right? An extrovert by definition is someone who derives energy out of other people by talking to other people. That's their energy source. Whereas an introvert derives energy from within, and that's the only difference, by the way. Like, and I can give you an example, actually live example. I remember this in my training period, right? We were like around. No, not training as such. We had a first 2 weeks of orientation, and we were a batch of around 50 people in that orientation. And we actually had a test or some activities to figure out who's an extrovert, who's an introvert. Okay. And the split between that group was 50-50.
Okay.
All right. So there are introverts as many as in number as extroverts, right? But what is important is to understand that being an introvert does not mean someone who can't communicate with someone who doesn't talk. It just means you look into yourself for energy. It's fine. I think there are different people have different styles. There's a beauty of consulting, by the way. There's no one archetype of consultants who set, right? And maybe I'll just give a quick example
So
before
you
we
meet a
move on,
variety
right?
of people.
Dude, because it's
Yeah,
like
sure.
because business problems are absolutely different. Okay, like
Correct.
going and doing an implementation project in a steel plant located in some remote place in Orissa requires a very
Right.
different skill set and mindset as compared to solving a financial problem for a bank located in Bombay, right? Um, so
Correct.
because the problems are so diverse, right? I think every consulting firm appreciates and identifies those differences in people and helps them navigate their own journeys. At least the quality ones do. So I would say there's nothing stopping an introvert or an extrovert from doing consulting if they genuinely feel like they want to do it.
So, moving on to one of the last questions in this section. I've many people say you need to be an excellent problem solver, slash you'll develop some excellent problem solving skills in consulting. Any comments on this?
See, first of all, I think problem solving is a very broadly used term and highly overused and wrongly used term as well. It's unfair to say that
Okay.
only consultants are supposed to be problem solvers, right? Like everyone in their own job is solving problems day in day out. An academic is solving problems. Someone who works in, let's say, let's say they do an operations plant role let's say, no, they solve problems on a day-to-day basis, and so do consultants. So everybody is exposed to problem solving at their own levels and in their own ways. But where does, in my opinion, where does consulting really help you understand that is because people here spend time understanding how problem solving works. People here genuinely think about structuring a problem. There are different ways of solving it. Like I don't want to go in depth, but people spend time thinking about them, and people spend time mindfully implementing those tools. So what happens is when you're aware of a process and you're mindful about it, it just becomes a lot more natural to your thinking, as opposed to randomly doing intuitively whatever you feel. Uh, so I think that's what happens. Like I think everybody does solve problems in their profession, but what consultants are supposed to do at least is be more mindful and structured about it, and that helps them build that muscle to a point where it becomes very, intuitive to them in certain ways. Um, but yeah, I'm not saying others don't pick up, but consultants should ideally pick up problem solving because that's their job day in day out.
Okay. That makes sense. So let's quickly move on to the last couple of questions and
Yeah.
probably the more interesting ones for our Janta. Salary. One word answers. What is the starting salary and how is the growth if someone decides to
See,
stick?
salary is a big function of the firm you join, right? Like
Okay.
it's
Let's talk
difficult
about
for
MBB.
if you say how much does a coder get paid after insti. I mean, it varies from company to company and location to location. MBB, again, I don't know what the updated numbers are. You should check the portal. I mean, it's available on the portal to ask your immediate seniors, but I think the number should vary anywhere from 16 to 20 lakhs per annum. um,
And how does it grow?
yeah, actually, one caveat here before you move on to the growth, right? 16 to 20 lakhs per annum is what
Uh-huh.
I know. On top of that, you do get other allowances like your travel, your stay, your food is all covered. So
Correct.
net your savings might be a lot different than just what you think it could be. How does it grow? So at least for the first 2 3 years when you're in your pre-MBA roles, you typically would be growing at a usual industry rate. But I think once you go to the next level of the track, if at all you do, like once you graduate to the next role, which is a post MBA role, and not a post MBA role from India, a post MBA role that you get after coming out of Harvard, right? Which you can do
Yeah.
by the way without a Harvard degree in certain firms. Then sudden,
Correct.
obviously your pay scale changes, right? You start earning in the north of. I mean, again, I'm not saying this is MBB. I think the number should be anywhere north of 40 to 50. But I don't know these numbers exactly because there has been a revision in certain firms and it's all changing. But honestly, man, I don't want to become very preachy, but don't think of these. At least for the viewers who are seeing this, like, don't optimize for this because ultimately it's a long game. Over the number of years, you'll end up earning a lot. But I understand it's important for people to know. So this is the answer I have.
Perfect. Last question. Working hours. Too much, too less, normal.
Again, see, too much, too less, normal are again relative terms. Right? What is too much for me could be normal for you. But let me not beat around the bush. Let me be absolutely honest. A good consulting firm, if it's following the right culture and right methods and processes, um, you would typically end up working, let's say, from 9 or 10 a.m. in the morning till 12 midnight, something like that. So I would say a
Okay.
usual. I mean, again, it's not like continuous, right? You do take your breaks.
Correct.
You do get
Correct.
time
Correct.
for your dinner or any hobby you want to pursue for half an hour or 1 hour. But overall, net, you'll be working for like 12, 14 hours a day, usually. And there are some bad days when you do end up working for 16 to 18 hours, right? But that also means that
And
you
you
can
travel a lot.
compensate those things. And yeah, I'll get the travel part, but you can compensate a lot. So that's on the working hours. But the interesting thing to note here is that consulting firms are 5 days. It's a 5 day job, so you don't work on weekends at all. And like the quality consulting firms don't actually let you work on weekends. Like I still remember,
Oh,
I got discouraged from sending mails on weekends unless absolutely necessary. The target is to finish things
oh,
within the week and then keep weekends to yourself. Like people
wow.
people very sacrosanct. So that is something very important to note as a culture. And talking about travel again, I think it's overhyped. Yes, there is traveling consulting, but more often than not, you end up taking 2 flights a week, one on a Monday morning, the other on a Friday night. Uh, so that's not really travel. You just get to a place and you work there. It's like I'm working in a building in Chennai, tomorrow I go and work in a building in Delhi. So big deal.
Makes sense. Fine.
But
So
yes, there
with
is
that, we
travel. Okay,
come.
I don't want to say we don't travel. There is a travel component, but don't fall for that as a value proposition. Is my personal advice, and people might differ on this.
Great, great. So I hope this interview was insightful. This is just the part one. I hope this was insightful and it did help bust a lot of myths around a consultant's life and his work. So we'll be back with our second video again with Vamsi, where we'll justify why people get into management consulting and how can you get into from Insta.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
I think we
Before
can
that, I just
start
have one
this.
point. I just have one point. Like
Yeah, sure.
so many of those answers were pure opinions. I would like to point that out to the viewers that they're not facts. Okay, like they are not like they can vary from person to person. These are all opinions that I have had over the time I've spent there, and what I'll just share with you guys. Yeah, over to you, Ayush.
Fine, that was a disclaimer towards the end. So cool. uh, yeah, we can pack this video, Rowan.